Thank you for joining us on our Made Local series to celebrate the publication of From Brownsville to Braddock, Ron Donoghue's ambitious and important project that captures our Mon Valley landscape. Hello, I'm Stephanie Flom, Executive Director of Pittsburgh Arts and Lectures. Welcome. Made Local is presented in partnership with the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh. Thank you to the library and to the University of Pittsburgh Press, the publisher of From Brownsville to Braddock, and to Whitewell Bookstore, where you can purchase a signed copy of Ron's book. Introducing Ron is John Fagan, the marketing director at Pitt Press. John's passion for publishing and book selling began when he was a Pitt student working at the University Book Center. John went on to hold a variety of sales and marketing positions at Random House and Penguin Books before returning home to Pittsburgh. Please welcome John Fagan. John?
Plein air artist Ron Donoughe has been painting and documenting the Western Pennsylvania region for the last 30 years. His paintings can be found in the Westmoreland Museum of Art, the Southern Alleghenies Museum of Art, the Heinz History Center, the Duquesne Club, the Pennsylvania Convention Center, and in numerous corporate and private collections. He has taught painting at La Roche College, the Pittsburgh Center for the Arts, and at workshops throughout the United States and France. His previous books include 90 Pittsburgh Neighborhoods and The Essence of Pittsburgh. With a foreword by author Maxwell King and an afterword by Ron Baroff of the Rivers of Steel Foundation, in Brownsville to Braddock, Donoughe shows us how the Monongahela River Valley is steeped with a rich industrial history. Starting with iron, brass, tin, and glass production, the river towns from Brownsville to Braddock ultimately helped make Pittsburgh the one-time steelmaking capital of the world. With this industrial legacy in mind, Ron set out to document this region one painting at a time. Over a 12-month period, he explored and painted in the sometimes forgotten towns of Brownsville, California, Dinora, Charleroi, Monessen, Monongahela, Clairton, Duquesne, McKeesport, Braddock, and the Monongahela River itself. His new book provides key insights on a 40-mile stretch of the Mon. The post-industrial economy led to a decline in manufacturing, and with it, substantial job losses. These towns face many significant challenges, yet there's still beauty to be found, and Donoughe finds it as he paints the human spirit evoked through the mills, factories, parks, and homes of the region. Along with the paintings in the book, people he met share their stories of family, joy, sorrow, and hope, along with a genuine love for the area they call the Mon Valley. And now, Ron Donoughe on his new book, Brownsville to Braddock.
Hi, and thanks for allowing me to share the release of this new book, Brownsville to Braddock, Paintings and Observations of the Monongahela River Valley. I want to first start by thanking Pittsburgh Arts and Lectures for allowing this to be shared to the public, also the University of Pittsburgh Press for publishing the book, and also the Robert A. Waters Fund at the Pittsburgh Foundation. I'm going to start with a little bio about myself, in case those of you out there don't know who I am. I'm a native of Loretto, Pennsylvania. I went to IUP, studied art education, moved to Pittsburgh in 1980. I've also studied at the California College of Arts and Crafts. I like to describe myself as a landscaper, former grave digger, chicken catcher, teacher, graphic designer, museum installer, and college instructor. As with most artists, there's no real straight line to get to where you want to be. But a lot of these things have helped me kind of become the artist and the voice that I wanted to be. And over the last 30 years, I've done these projects that have lasted kind of, I consider them documentary in a way. They're where I explore an area for a year at a time and make a group of paintings on plein air, which simply means in front of I paint on location. And I thought I'd just show you a few of those publications, which first was the Essence of Pittsburgh. This one, incidentally, is sold out. It might still be on Amazon. next project was paintings of Indiana County. This collection is on view at the Fine Arts Building in Indiana University of Pennsylvania in the Performing Arts Center. This collection of paintings was from Labor and Landscape, was from Loretto, Johnstown, Altoona area, where I grew up. And it was kind of an autobiographical look at that region I was familiar with. This exhibition was held at the Southern Allegheny Museum of Art. It was a limited edition book. I only had 100 of these made. These are sold out as well. And this one you probably are most familiar with. It's 90 Neighborhoods of Pittsburgh. That's where I spent a year going through the neighborhoods alphabetically over 12 months and painting. And this collection right now of paintings are exhibited at the Heinz History Center on the 4th floor beside the Mr. Rogers exhibition. So if you get down there, it's a really wonderful exhibition. They even have iPads where you can navigate through the city. So those are the previous publications that I've done. And this Brownsville to Braddock is I'm very excited about because it was an area that I wasn't really that familiar with. And I guess I want to start by saying everyone's wondering why the Mon Valley? Why would you want to paint that area? And simply stated is that I want to document a region that I'm interested in. I think it's historically significant to Pittsburgh, to our region, to our heritage. And I kind of believe that these paintings are a time capsule of what's happening in that region, and it's actually looking at it through my eyes. So let's just jump right in here. Here's a map of Pennsylvania, but you can see the Monongahela River Valley is this little triangle right here. And if you look at the bigger area, Brownsville is approximately 40 miles directly south of Pittsburgh. And the river flows north, which is unusual here. And it's very windy through the valley. So the paintings go from Brownsville all the way up to Braddock. And the book has them in the order from Brownsville to Braddock, although I honestly didn't do them in that sequence. I kind of jumped around a bit. But in the book, they're in that sequence. So let's start. I think I'm including about 40 images here. The book has more. So this is just a sampling of what I did over the year. I started in 2019 in January and worked the entire year. So it was 12 months of traveling down there about once a week. So I made approximately one painting a week. That was the average. And remember, Brownsville was about an hour drive, so it wasn't really that easy to get there. And so I would do normally one painting. Some days I actually did two. So this is the Bowmans Castle. It has a lot of the Victorian architecture to it. It was built in 1790 by Bowman. It's also known as the Nemacolin Castle. It sits on a ridge there, and it's quite dramatic when you come across the bridge and see this in Brownsville. It's open for tours, by the way. I'm going to show you that these paintings, 12 by 16 inch, were done on location with some of these images, some of these shots. So you'll see, like, this is Union Station right behind my palette. And so you can see the subject as well as the painting. I actually had an idea for this painting that of more of the shadow on the building, but it didn't really work out. Kind of have to go with what you have there. It's an historic town. In fact, Brownsville, if you're interested in history, is fantastic. It's one of the reasons I started there. It was actually larger than Pittsburgh, and it was a hub for commerce and trading. riverboat building, glass making, iron. So it was quite the important destination for pioneers that were coming through to the west. They'd started get on the boat at Brownsville and go up to Pittsburgh and then onto the Ohio and west. This is the Lane Bain Bridge. It crosses over the Mon into Brownsville. You can see it's a gigantic bridge, and the scale is shown here with a train that goes underneath of it. Strange things happen when you're on location painting. A landscape crew approached me. They were filling their tank with some water, and one of the guys came over and he looked just like a brother that my younger brother, who hasn't been around for 9 years. He's deceased, but it was very strange. It kind of freaked me out a little bit. Here we are in California, PA. That my dad worked on the railroad, and I'm kind of taken by these strong, simple shapes of the railroad car. That's actually open for tours. It's right on the campus of of CalU. It's also, this red is popping out because it's surrounded by its complementary color green. I was photographed by CalU University when I was painting this. Part of my interest in painting on location is how colors change over distance. This plays out right here in this particular painting. It was a fine mist. I believe it was the end of April. And the mist actually, what it does is encapsulates the scene and softens all the edges. So you get a real sense of distance and space and air between what is the subject here, the California University down in the middle there, and the river and where I am. These kind of things are not painted well from a photograph. You have to kind of be on location to experience that visually. A lot of photographs become too contrasty. This is Belle Vernon. I believe it's called Water Street, aptly named. And I actually set up on this to do the marina that's across the river, but for some reason, I just couldn't stop thinking about the river traffic and the railroad traffic here with the contrast of the water and these stones, the bridge pier. So I decided I was going to paint that instead. The light and shadow on these forms were just too much to resist. You can see how colorful they are. And they've aged over time. They have quite a patina to them. That's the thing about painting on location. You're never quite sure what's going to happen or what direction, what's going to speak out to be painted. I wanted to add a little levity to the project with this antique store. I couldn't resist this painting these funny animals and the rooster. I imagined the rooster was going to take that American flag and start a parade right down the middle of the street. They were hilarious. Yeah, that's Charleroi, by the way. My partner Catherine's grandparents lived in Monessen, and this was their house. Her grandfather worked in the mill, and a lot of these stories about folks that lived in the valley revolve around working in the mill. And I wanted to paint a lot of the scenes of the valley because landscape to me is really the intersection of how we build, how we live, and work. And a lot of these scenes are encompass that. This was my favorite piece of architecture over the year. It was it's in Monessen. I believe it's the Monessen Savings and Trust. It's still in pretty good shape, even though it's vacant. Windows are broken out. Weeds are growing on the ledge. But I couldn't do the whole thing. It's just too large of a subject. So I set up right across the street Now, a funny thing happened when I was there. A woman bounced across the street holding her iPhone towards me and wasn't quite sure what she was up to, but she approached and said, "Look what I did." And it was a painting of a boat, clearly a tutorial from a painting class. And it was actually pretty well done. But those kind of happenstance things happen when you're on site. You're just never quite sure what's going to occur. It's another painting of Monessen. That mill, I believe, has since shut down. The local postman parked behind me and told me the town history and politics, and actually stayed for some time. I guess he figured I wasn't going anywhere. But that happens a lot. But it's being a part of the community rather than just taking a picture and leaving. I feel like I'm not just a detached observer. I'm part of this scene. I'm part of things. And somehow that spirit of place gets into the work. And that's one of the reasons I like to paint right there. Not to mention light and color is much better. Here we are in Dinora. That is a kind of a typical scene of the Mill Valley, with these houses on this inclined plane slope that goes down to the river, where the mill would be right against the water, and then the town and these houses. Clearly, these folks get their steps in every day. The city steps are here towards the bottom. It was a beautiful November day when I was there. Denora is full of history. Maybe you've heard about the Dinora inversion in 1948. Here's a church in Dinora. It's St. Nicholas Orthodox Church. You can see where the churches were the center of the cultural and heritage activities. Just by looking at the architecture, you can see how important that they were to the town and the immigrants. This one is perched up on top of the hill, and it's got a great view of the valley below. This is the last one I have of Dinora. It's where the United States Steel Zinc manufacturing plant was. That was the one that had caused all the trouble with the inversion. The pollution was so dense during the day that people couldn't see to walk across the street. It's hard to imagine, especially when you're painting on a day like that, where it's completely clear and beautiful. Yeah, I think 20 people died, and another 10,000 people had respiratory illness from that. But it was the beginning of the pollution laws. So some good did come out of it. Here we are in Monongahela. That's the Monongahela Manor. I believe it's a senior high-rise. This just didn't look like anything else in the valley. And I painted it with the church in the background just to show the contrast of architectural styles. And I was looking at the overall texture of and building of the region. So I wanted to get a sampling. This one is especially interesting in that it's kind of got that brutalism style of architecture, but it sits right next to the river where the aquatorium is, which is a stage on the river. And remember that these are easily accessible. If you go down to the Mon Valley, it's easy to access all this stuff. There's a lot to see and really a lot to experience, which is one of the reasons I did this project, was to shine a light on a region that a lot of people aren't so familiar with. I know I wasn't. Unfortunately, there's a lot of buildings that are being recycled by nature. This was one that I thought was particularly interesting. I call it Guardian because of the huge arborvitae tree that's overgrown that stands beside it. But painted a few of these houses that are really going back to nature. It's a nice, beautiful light and shadow day. There's actually another painting under here. 100 years from now, when it's x-rayed, someone will find there was a bad painting underneath. Not everything is kept, but I made a second attempt at it, and I was more satisfied with this version. One thing that I did was a little different on this project, because I don't normally paint people, is that I went back to the streets where I worked 6 months later after the project was complete, and met people, and had a friend with me who was videotaping the interviews. And I wanted to show that these weren't just buildings. People live in these towns that thrive and are hopeful about where they are, like their neighborhoods. And so it was kind of an aspect where I could get the humanity into the story. And it was interesting for me too, because it's hard for me to concentrate talking to folks while I'm painting. So to go back and meet them later was added to my experience. This is Aisha. This is was the Mitchell power plant. It's now closed. I didn't realize it when I was painting it, because there was not a plume there, but it was a very cold morning, about 12 degrees. And I painted it and took it to my studio, and then looked it up and realized that had been closed for about 7 or 8 years. And I, by that time, already added the plume. So I call it imaginary plume. Well, I believe this was painted from New Eagle. So I could imagine the plume, but what I couldn't imagine is whatever happens to these buildings after they're vacant. They're just enormous. There's another one right up the river there and they were both coal-fired plants. They're now not being used. I'm going to jump ahead one more here just to show you that where I was at this place. This is Elizabeth. Yeah, so now you can see my palette. It's kind of a mess. Going back to the painting. People say, well, why didn't you paint that? And my first reaction is, well, it really kind of spoke to me. There was something about it that made it special. In this case, I believe it was the light and shadow on the house, but it's also the way it was. It sat there. It was with those chimney pots. I call this chimney pots, twin chimney pots. But the architecture in Elizabeth is quite beautiful, and it's right there along the river. It's very historic. Again, another good place to visit and walk the town if you're in the Mon Valley. Now, there was a woman actually, hanging out a window right behind me that I wasn't aware when I was painting this. It just kind of startled me to tell me that she'd been watching me for a half an hour. This is Harold. He just caught the sheep's head. Nice guy right on the river and enjoying the day. You can see there are barges behind him. What you find out is there's a lot of activity along the rivers. People enjoying themselves right along with industry. This is the image used on the cover of the book. It's one of my favorite. And it's also, incidentally, the first painting I did of the group. I went down there to Clairton and started this painting a couple weeks after a big amount of pollution was released. And I guess I wasn't aware at that time about that accident, but I could smell the sulfur in the air. So these plants were never meant to be aesthetic statements, but I will tell you that they are. And especially from my point of view, they're quite interesting. They have a lot of texture, activity. They're a moving target because of the plumes, but they're also kind of interesting because of the the overall feeling of the history. You can almost sense the history and the heritage of what the Mon Valley was. It's a lot of steelmaking. This is also, we're in Clairton, right up from the mill. You realize that these homes were placed very close to the mill, and they depended on the mill. The town is right up from here. I love this light and shadow on these buildings. I believe they're 4 square houses. Well, the other thing that caught my eye about this scene is that I'm an identical twin. Some folks out there know that, but so when I see groups of 2 like this, houses in the plumes, I'm immediately thinking, I don't know, I should paint that. But I love this scene. It's one of my favorites of the group. Full disclosure, this is a friend's mom that I've known, and she's just stopped tutoring, but she still drives, and she's 94 years old. She's holding her Lifetime Leadership Award for community service. That's Louise. Isn't she cute? I may have been trespassing to get this painting. It was exactly what I had in mind when I got into the valley, where it had barges, it had the mountains, it had that's the Clairton mill in the background, and it just felt right. It was what I kind of really wanted to do, and so I think it was worth it for me to take a little bit of a chance. I'm extremely influenced by the group of painters around the turn of the century that were referred to as the Ashkan School. The artist in charge was Robert Henry, but he was known for being America's most important art educator, as well as an important painter. He taught George Bellows, John Sloan, and Edward Hopper, who you're probably familiar with. And the whole idea of the Ashkan School was to paint what was not religious or wealthy subjects, to go out and paint the grittiness and the unvarnished scenes around New York. And that was a big step forward in art. And it's something that was true American painting. It wasn't based on what came from Europe. And there's something about that still resonates with me. Those painters that just, they were picking subjects that were not glamorous. And this warehouse kind of reminds me of that, and that it's just about a simple scene, a common scene, very ordinary. But by painting it and making it a subject like this, I was sensing that it's really extraordinary in a way, because it's now a painting. It's hopefully an historical document at some point, because these buildings won't last for long. You can see the trees growing up through them. They're kind of on their last leg. Railroad tracks went up the side. Once a very busy place for sure. This is the cemetery in McKeesport. Cemeteries around the turn of the century in the late 1800s were designed not just to be graveyards, but also parks. And we have one here in Lawrenceville where I'm based. It's the Allegheny Cemetery. And people still use them as parks. They're fantastic places to walk and to be thoughtful. Unfortunately, this cemetery has a lot of headstones that are pushed over, but it's still worth a visit. The entrance is spectacular. So that's we're still in McKeesport here. This is a couple that I found later in the summer that were paying their respects. It's Melissa and Sam on his Harley. They were curious about what we were doing there that day. This is another McKeesport painting. I wanted to focus here on the recreation that's important to the rivers and to the Mon Valley. Lots of boating in this marina. I believe it's the Gurgley Riverside Park where these boats are. Funny story about this is that the boat in the middle without any top on was not starting for these folks. And I was about halfway through the painting, and I thought, oh, brother, this is why I don't paint trucks and cars. Every time you get started in a good place, they leave. And fortunately for me, they couldn't get it started. So I got to finish that painting. Really like that one. I think I was just cleaning up when I heard the engine start. So a man that was enjoying the park in the summertime, Julius, he was telling me how he's at the Riverside Park where I did that painting, and he was explaining to me that McKeesport was so busy when he was working in construction and the mills were working that people walked elbow to elbow down the street. And he said, as soon as the mills shut down, the town shut down. It's like a lot of people that talk about what he's referring to is basically the post-industrial era that we're in right now. It's gone primarily. And it's had a big impact on these towns, especially the river towns that depended on industry. This McKeesport, it has this has a hopper feeling to it. I was immediately taken by these houses. Sometimes I think I see these houses as personalities, and they're placed to. I like the group of three right there beside each other, and then the other two are, I guess we'll say, they're social distancing. But the light on that caught on the sides of those buildings really made that painting sing to me. It's one of my favorites of the group. Okay, then here we have Duquesne. I was on, I believe, 2nd Avenue, and it was going to start raining that day, and I just couldn't decide what I was going to do. And I don't know, this house just kind of spoke to me. So here is there's a young lady that grew up on the street. It's Amira, and you can see the house in the background. It's interesting that to meet folks that grew up there or that spent time there, and they give you a little bit of a take on what's important to them about their neighbors, their families. Again, kind of giving me more of a since I don't really paint people, it's interesting to meet folks there that are there on the site. This is the steel curtain. Obviously, I could not ignore Kennywood Park. It's a big part of the valley. I did this on site. I was right up from the park, and while I was working, 3 of the construction guys came up to me. They were fairly curious about this. They could see my painting with the park there, and they said, "Hey, look, there's one of the lights we just put up." They had carried the lights that were 85 pounds by hand up that ramp to put them 220 feet up. I said, "Well, you must not be afraid of the heights." They said, "Actually, we are." But it was interesting. They enjoyed seeing my representation of what they were building. It's an amazing piece of architecture, isn't it? And while we're on the subject of roller coasters, here's the very famous Thunderbolt. I did put a couple people in there. This was done from my iPhone photo, especially joyful painting, I think, because of these folks kind of, they throw their arms up, and there's a lot of light and color and activity with the way that painting is constructed. But yeah, I wanted to express how much fun it is to go to the park and the memories that we have. I actually made this painting larger. I'm not sure if you can see behind me. It's behind me are some of the actual paintings, but this one was made increased in scale. It's 30 by 40 behind me. Originally, it was done 12 by 16 inches like the other ones. This is painted from East Pittsburgh. The Edgar Thompson plant is at the back, and it's framed by the railroad piers. This particular painting was done because of that structure leading the eye back to the mill. I've painted it before, but you can really feel the significance of these structures and how they were built to last. You get that feeling, especially when you're on location and the trains come right over the top of you. This was a painting done from another iPhone photo. I took the image while on the Rankin Bridge. I'm not sure if many people would like to know how I technically make painting, but I will say that I pre-mix color, that 3 to 5 pre-mixed colors, and I alter those light and dark and warm and cool to make paintings. This particular piece I like because it was almost monochromatic in some ways. It doesn't have a lot of variance in color, but it's a very cool palette, and it's kind of simple, but it's also very strong in that it has just enough warmth where the sunlight kissed the river down at the very lower right-hand corner. That's the Edgar Thomson works as well. This is Melissa. We are in North Braddock now. I want to jump ahead one more here to show you the painting that I did on that street. That is the same street. If I go back, you'll see that house right behind her on the right. So and in the book, I mentioned that this title is Out of This Furnace, and it's actually a book that was a quite famous book written by Thomas Bell about 3 generations of immigrants that worked in the mills in Braddock. That influenced this painting, and it's influenced some of the work I've done there over 20 years. This painting, to me, represents exactly how people lived in the industrial world. They lived on the street, they worked on the street, they drank beer at the bottom of the street, they bought groceries in the town, they went to church sometimes on the street. They could spend their entire life right there on that street. And I was thinking about that as I did this. I think it's a very powerful piece. Unfortunately, tragic hits all communities, and this is a painting in North Braddock that it was burned out. I didn't want to make a big deal about it, but it was beautiful in its state. The opposite hill is kind of where Kennywood is located. This is the Mon Valley, and the Mon Valley Works. It's part of the Edgar Thomson plan. And when I was painting there, it occurred to me that I had to really carve these shapes out with the paint. These are enormous buildings, so that you can see that the plumes are escaping from different places. And when you're right there up against the mill, you can actually sense the power of these things, and they're almost like they're alive in some weird way. That's why I like to be on site. I call it the Zen of seeing, but it's not like just taking a photo. It's being in front of your subject for 2 to 3 hours and carefully concentrating on what it is that you see. That makes it a bigger experience for me. I will work from photos. I have nothing against photos, but for me, something happens when I'm on site like this that I think somehow affects me and hopefully makes a better painting. This is another piece that I was drawn to, where the house is kind of on its last leg. A lot of dignity to these homes, even though they're vacant. Winter especially makes these interesting, where they have a coat of snow on the roofs. This is the last slide I'm showing. It's the Carey furnace in Rankin, and technically it's outside of my Brownsville to Braddock title, but I wanted to do this because Rivers of Steel partnered with me on this project, and they are the ones that give tours here at the Carey Furnace. It's a National Historic Landmark. The tours are fantastic, and it's an enormous structure. I would highly recommend that you get down there. If you're going to do the tour, the Brownsville to Braddock tour, remember to hit Rankin and the Carey Furnace. And you can see Ron Donoughe, the curator there at Rivers of Steel, took this photo. Thanks, Ron. And it was a cold day. He hung out there with me. So that's really all I have. I hope you see that this, for me, it was creating a time capsule of where the landscape intersects with buildings, people, and everything about the region. And thanks for joining me on the tour.
Thank you so much for taking us on a tour through the Monongahela Valley from Brownsville to Braddock. You have so beautifully captured this rich landscape and preserved this moment in time. So I'd like to start at the beginning, if I can, and I'm going way back to your mother. You dedicate the book to your mother, Camilla, and as you wrote, quote, an orphan, an independent thinker, a mother of 10, and a product of the Mon Valley, although she didn't even know it. There's got to be a story there. Can you share it?
Yeah, and I cheated a little bit because she's actually, her dad was from Connellsville, and I suspected that was close enough. But she did not know who her parents were. I found out last summer that through DNA who her dad was. So it was kind of surprising to me that where she was from, and I just wanted to kind of throw that in as making a kind of a connection to her spirit.
That's absolutely lovely. I'm so glad you did. It's beautiful. And you have lots of other family woven into the book. Speaking of spirit, you had the ghostly visit from your brother while you're painting. You talk about the twin houses, and you talk about your dad being a railroad worker. So can you talk about your family connection in your work?
Thanks for asking. Growing up out in Cambria County, it's being an artist wasn't, I don't know, the top of the line occupation, but my family was always very supportive, and I have this identical twin brother, so we were both drawn to the arts early on, and so I just wanted to give a nod to, I think a lot of artists draw from within and our own inner life, and there's a lot of our own history that gets into our work, and I'm thinking about that a lot of times when I'm on site, because you're kind of in a thoughtful place. And I still own my house where I grew up in Cambria County, so I'm there frequently. And I don't know, I just think it's a nice way to make paintings go a little extra, even if the viewer's not aware of that connection.
Yeah.
When I'm doing it.
Yeah, well, I think your viewers are happy to know that. I think what you talk about in your lecture is that Zen state you go into while you're painting. And I think that is reflected in your painting, and the fact that that you're surrounded in a loving presence is also just so beautiful.
Thanks.
So speaking of Loretto, I was surprised that Maxwell King said that Loretto is famous for a school of plein air painters. Were you aware of that growing up?
Well, it's actually the Scalp level school in Johnstown, Cambria County. But absolutely, George Hetzel and many of the other painters of Pittsburgh would escape to the where the dam broke and flooded Johnstown. They were painting, and that's all Scalp level. So they had a retreat up there. They needed to get fresh mountain air like everybody else did in the industrial era. So yes, I'm quite aware of that group of painters, and they were working on plein air, which is what I do. So it's really a lot of their studies happened to be made into bigger paintings.
So was that something that children in the Johnstown, Cambria area know about growing up?
No.
No.
I learned about it later as I started. I used to install work at the Brick Art Museum for many years, and so I became a fanatic about learning about local artists and the history and the tie-ins there.
When I drive around Pittsburgh and I see someone out painting, I know it's you. There just aren't a lot of outdoor landscape painters. So how did this become your life?
Well, I think every artist is always searching for their voice and what suits them and how they can discover it. I personally like being outside, and I liked art. It seemed like a natural thing for me to do. And as I studied art, I was trying to be clever and do these things that were just really not me. And out of frustration, in my late 20s, I went into a snowy cornfield with my paints and realized that there was something happened. It wasn't a very good painting, but something stirred in me that I could preserve a moment of time on that landscape that kind of entered my body and came out my arm somehow. And that was just a changing moment for me. And it stayed with me. There was a lot of learning to do, though, because painting is not only, it's an art, it's also a craft. So there's a lot of technical stuff that you need to acquire over the years. So I just love doing it. And when it's a sunny day, or any kind of day, really, I want to be outside kind of studying it. I call it the zen of seeing when I'm on site looking at something.
Yeah, well,
it's a good place.
Yeah, that's what a great story. That and good for you that you were aware of that moment, where you felt that stir, and went on to get the skills you needed to make that stir into a livelihood.
Yeah, that said, it wasn't an easy journey. When you've got two little children and your wife is a potter, there were some struggling moments through the years, but I just enjoyed it so much, and I felt like I was doing the right thing. And then I suddenly realized that in my quest to be this painter, I was documenting a changing world, and then that is what led me to doing these extended projects of painting in one area for like a year at a time.
You have had a series of projects that have just had such a big impact on Pittsburgh and the neighborhoods, on the surrounding communities. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the happy accidents that when you came up with this project, let us know that you were on the right path? You share some of those in your acknowledgement at the end.
I have done several of these one-year projects, and I was looking for something new to do. And my partner, Catherine, and I were talking about her grandparents' house in Monessen and how he worked in the mills. And that was weekends. She grew up in Bellevue. So there was something about the Mon Valley that I was very curious about. And I thought the best way for me to learn an area and to explore it is to paint it. And I also felt like I was documenting a region that's been overlooked. So I wanted to shine a light on it as I discovered it. So I didn't really want any personal tours from people in the valley. I just wanted to kind of happily kind of move around and see things that call out to be painted. And I can't really, a lot of people say, well, why'd you paint that old building or something? And I don't have a good answer because it just feels right. I can imagine it as a painting, not as a photograph, but as something that will translate into an historical document for me, so that it's important enough for me to allow others to see it through my eyes. Mm. Did I answer that question?
You did. It was great. I just need to let it settle in for me for a minute, because I think I love that in your talk you gave us that feel for what you were thinking when you saw that built landscape and the natural landscape and the light and the plume. And and what made you stop in your tracks and open your palette?
And the other thing, Stephanie, is that people started to hear about the project. The folks from Touchstone, I told them, and they connected me to California University. Rivers of Steel were part of it. So it's interesting in that if you're doing things for the right reason, the world kind of converges to help you. And if your heart's in the right place, I've always believed that. And it, like building it and they will come kind of thing. And this really did kind of happen. People got interested in the project and got behind it. And I was lucky enough to find some people that helped fund it. And so I don't know. This is a fantastic area to be in and do what I do. Pittsburghers are so generous and thoughtful about other people that are trying hard to say something important.
I love that when a project unfolds by one partnership at a time, one person that leads you to another.
Yes.
It sounds like there was
it's collaborative. And because I work by myself, it's really fulfilling to work with folks on a project like that. It's really a nice way to feel involved.
Yeah, and good for all your collaborators that they saw that in the project, and good for you for collaborating, and it became all the richer and deeper and wider. And now, and we get to benefit with this beautiful book as a result. And we've talked a lot about the paintings, but I wanted to talk about the writing, or ask you actually to read to us. I think the short descriptions that accompany each of your paintings are just exquisite. To me, they are prose poems. They are straightforward and they are honest. And I wondered, Ron, if you might close by reading a few of them in succession. Could you do that?
Sure. And I really appreciate that, because writing for me is like drawing blood. But I think it is important to articulate why it is that I do what I do. And so it helps me too as a painter. Let's do a vista from Cal U. I'm often trying to describe what happens in the atmosphere between the subject and myself. It's important to understand that atmospheric effects in order to mix the proper colors. And that is what I'm trying to say there, is that the atmosphere envelopes an area and it changes things, the colors, as they go into the distance. And so that's really important when you're on site to feel that. Okay, this is called Fire in the Sky. It's Monessen. The local mailman stopped his van behind me, where he had an excellent view of my painting in the scene. He started telling me about the economic issues of the town and a short history of the mill I was painting. You know, I think of these as captions, but just little snippets of my memory of being on site, because interesting things do happen when you're like right there. This is another from Monessen. The steep hillside in Monessen allows for a wonderful vista of the town and its industry. This winter scene was quite cheerful as the skies cleared and the sun dappled the buildings.
Just beautiful, Ron. To me, the prose lets us into your process, what you're seeing. And you have words for them. You have beautiful words for them. So I know everyone's going to really enjoy this book. I really enjoyed being able to ask you so many questions. Thank you for letting me get a little bit personal. And everyone, Ron Donoughe, Pittsburgh landscape paint. Go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to thank the local booksellers. There's a lot of them that are going to be carrying this. And I wanted to reach out and say thanks to them, and to thanks for everyone that supports the University of Pittsburgh Press, Pittsburgh Arts and Lectures as well. Thank you, Stephanie.
Well, it's not surprising to me that you don't want to let everyone go before you've been able to thank everyone. You were very gracious. Ron Donoughe with his new book, Brownsville to Braddock with the University of Pittsburgh Press. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.